What's up everybody, this is Master EN Gamer. In today's video, I wanted to discuss a rather concerning topic I've seen brought up recently. Will Overwatch 2 switching to 5v5 turn out to be a huge mistake? Now, as many of you know, I for the most part have been in favor of the 5v5 change because it brings a lot of benefits to the game and overall is just an interesting new direction to take Overwatch. But as we start to see Blizzard reveal more of Overwatch 2 itself and the development process going into it, there have been more than a few red flags popping up to suggest that this sort of change could potentially end up hurting Overwatch 2 more than it helps it. So today I'll be delving into why exactly this change could end up being an issue for Overwatch 2 in the long run, and consider whether or not Blizzard may have made a mistake by implementing 5v5. Real quick first though, I'd like to give a shout out to something that's the opposite of a mistake, and that's today's sponsor, PHNX. PHNX produces top-of-the-line minimalist phone cases that protect your device without hiding it beneath several layers of ugly, bulky plastic. Elegant and sleek, these cases accentuate the natural curves and contours of your phone to make it as pleasing to look at and hold as the day you first got it. Because as everyone knows, the best things in life come in small packages. PHNX has minimalist cases for all the latest devices. Get one for your iPhone 13 or pre-order today to get one for the brand new Pixel 6. No matter your make or model, PHNX cases have got you covered. But best of all, you can save 20% on your order from PHNX by using my special code MIG21. Just enter MIG21 in the discount code box at checkout or follow the link in the description to have it apply automatically to your purchase. So ditch your old phone case and upgrade today to a PHNX minimal case. Your phone will thank you. Thanks to PHNX for sponsoring today's video, and now back to Overwatch. So getting back to Overwatch 2 and its change from a 6v6 format to 5v5, the big issue and concern I've started to see pop up is how much time and effort Blizzard themselves are dedicating simply to this one aspect. Since the announcement of 5v5 back during the Overwatch anniversary event in May, basically every single update we've gotten regarding the Overwatch sequel has been focusing on 5v5 changes. Everything they're showing off has to do with this, whether it's the reworks for heroes like Sombra and Bastion, the general little balance changes and number tweaks to things like damage and healing output and ability cooldowns, to even the more broad changes to characters like especially the tank heroes, and trying to redefine how they work in a system with only one tank instead of two, and overall only 5 players per team instead of 6. It's clear based on what they've shown off so far that Blizzard has been dedicating a ton of time and effort into focusing on these balance changes, all purely because they decided to change from 6v6 to 5v5. And I will admit, I have been openly in favor of 5v5 in the past because overall, as a fan of Overwatch, I'm very curious to see what a 5v5 version of the game would look like. I think it could potentially fix a number of issues we see in the current Overwatch, specifically when it comes to queue times for different roles, and overall the general balance and feel of playing the game. But are those benefits, which I might add are only possibilities of panning out as benefits, worth it for the sheer amount of time and resources this change is soaking up? One iteration after another on this hero after that hero, and maybe Doomfist now is going to be reworked into being a tank, but oh, we're still fine-tuning the reworks we already announced for Bastion and Sombra, since those evidently don't seem that good, and on top of that we haven't even discussed Sigma, or Orisa, or Moira, or what's going to happen with any of those characters, all of whom are presumably going to be getting pretty substantial changes because of this 5v5 transition. At this point, now that we've seen just how much time and effort is going into this singular aspect of the game, I have to ask, what could we have gotten instead if they had just stuck with 6v6? All that time spent balancing the old existing heroes, could that have potentially gone into other areas, such as new heroes added to the roster, or maybe even new game modes, new different aspects and mechanics potentially introduced to the existing game modes, or heck, maybe even just PvE? Has anyone else noticed that we haven't seen or heard a lick of information about PvE in close to a year at this point? How's that coming along? I'm sure everyone would love to see a PvE update, but no, we haven't heard anything since BlizzConline. For all we know, PvE has been shelved in favor of them just focusing on getting 5v5 to actually work. Now, I should mention, it probably isn't that extreme that they would have just outright shelved PvE. I'm sure they're just not wanting to talk about it because they want to keep it hidden for the right time to reveal it and whatnot. But when we factor in the idea that apparently Overwatch 2 is going to be launching sometime around mid-2022, so less than a year from now, and we see them focusing almost exclusively on just the 5v5 PvP balance changes and reworks, I am getting a bit concerned that perhaps they've pushed back some other types of content that they could have been working on in favor of just getting 5v5 to work. And I have to admit, I don't fault them for this, given that they've already made the commitment to switching from 6v6 to 5v5. Think about it this way. Let's say Activision gave the Overwatch development team the hard deadline of needing to have Overwatch 2 finished by May 24th, 2022, let's just say. In this scenario, what would be the single most important thing for them to have working perfectly by the time of the game's release? It would be the standard PvP gameplay which already exists in Overwatch 1. Overwatch 2 needs to, at a bare minimum, have a comparable PvP experience to what Overwatch 1 has. And given that they've already committed to making the 5v5 transition, the one thing they need to have working by the time of Overwatch 2's release is that 5v5 PvP gameplay. Anything else beyond that is secondary at this point. That includes new maps they haven't shown off yet, new heroes they haven't shown off yet, and the PvE side of Overwatch 2, which is still in a very nebulous state from the general public's perspective. Sure, those things have been promised to be coming with the sequel, but Blizzard could technically just get away with saying, oh yeah, we just have a few new maps that we haven't shown off yet, and a couple new heroes we haven't told you about yet, and the PvE mode is really simple, but hey, we'll work on it more after the game releases, right? Sure, all of those are incredibly scummy things for Blizzard to do, and they're gonna get some pretty severe backlash if that ends up happening, but simply when it comes to what has to be finished by Overwatch 2's release, the baseline PvP experience is what takes top priority. At the very least, players need to be able to continue playing PvP as they have been in Overwatch 1, even if it means playing in 5v5 instead of 6v6. And honestly, I believe this is why they've been focusing so heavily on it and showing us so much about the PvP, because they know this is the most relevant and critical aspect when it comes to their core player base that's still playing the game. However, I have to mention that while sure the core PvP experience is the fundamental and most important aspect of the game itself, showing off 5v5 and the hero balance changes correlating with it isn't particularly exciting for the masses. Someone like me, who is very dedicated to the game, is thrilled to see what a 5v5 version of Overwatch would look like. If for no other reason, I'm just curious to test it out and see how it plays relative to 6v6, and it's a sort of change which I can easily see the benefits of as well as the negatives, but overall I'm just optimistic about it because I think it'll be a fun new take on a game I still currently love. But for the average gamer who maybe played Overwatch for the first year or two after it released and then gave up on it to play other games, is the change to 5v5 really that interesting? I've talked to a number of friends of mine who used to play Overwatch in the early days but have given up on it since, and told them about the change from 6v6 to 5v5, and the general response I get is, oh, okay, cool. None of them care about the specific balance changes, none of them care about the reworks to characters like Bastion and Sombra. They just see it as, oh, just a gameplay change that's not particularly exciting, so why should they care? That on its own certainly isn't going to bring any of them back to Overwatch, even with the release of Overwatch 2, because a change from 6v6 to 5v5 simply isn't appealing to most people. That's not to say that it's unappealing necessarily, but rather that it's simply so uninteresting and unnoteworthy to the average player that it does nothing to sell the sequel. What does sell the sequel is the promise of new maps, heroes, and game modes. Those are the things that genuinely get people excited for the idea of Overwatch 2. They want to see Malga, they want to see the Junker Queen, they want to see some other new character we've never even heard of before. They want to play on all these brand new cool locations that we have yet to explore within the Overwatch universe, and they want to engage in 4-player co-op co-op PvE missions, to fight off wave after wave of enemy omnics, and just have a good time with friends. None of those interests are being satisfied by Blizzard focusing so heavily on rebalancing the existing PvP heroes and game modes to fit this 5v5 format. I mean, even if we look at the way the existing dedicated Overwatch player base has been reacting to the 5v5 balance changes, I think it's hard to argue that they've been overall positive. Of course, you're going to get the loud forum shriekers who just complain endlessly about anything, no matter what it is. But also, looking at the pro players who've actually gotten a chance to play 5v5, their reception to it has been lukewarm at best. There are some aspects of it which they do seem to enjoy, but overall, they seem fairly unimpressed by what they're seeing. I can't really say how much of this is them just speaking from their own professional high-end gameplay perspective relative to them feeling like what they're seeing in Overwatch 2 just isn't interesting from a new content perspective. But overall, you have to admit that pretty much across the board, reception to the changes we've been seeing for Overwatch 2 have been maybe a little optimistic in areas, but other than that, not that overly excited. Is 5v5 a good direction to take Overwatch 2? Quite possibly. As I said before, I think there are a lot of benefits to this change, and overall, it could be a great direction for them to take it. But is it worth the cost of all this other actually notable content that'll get people back into playing Overwatch 2, or will actually get people on board for the first time ever? I don't think so. If Blizzard had their old school system of being able to work on a game forever basically and just release it only when it's properly finished, then yes, I think 5v5 would be an excellent direction for them to take the game and absolutely be something they should focus on. But at this point in time, I'm not sure it's really the best thing they should be focusing on when it comes to selling the sequel. Had they just stuck with 6v6 and dedicated all this time into potentially making 6v6 better balanced than it is in Overwatch 1, while also being able to focus on new heroes, maps, and game modes, I think they might be better off. And the really sad thing is that it might not even really be the Overwatch dev team's fault that they've ended up in this position. Perhaps they originally intended for Overwatch 2 to not release for another few years at this point, but just given external factors they didn't really have control over, they were sort of forced to rush and focus on the game in certain areas that are going to overall end up producing a functional, but not particularly interesting product. But who knows, maybe at the end of the day, this focus on 5v5 balance changes hasn't even really taken away much from the development of other content. Maybe they've just been showing off these new balance changes because it's something they can show off without spoiling new maps and heroes that they otherwise want to save for some other reveal later down the line. Maybe they've got a ton of cool stuff already essentially finished internally, and the 5v5 changes are just the final polish icing on the cake to make the game perfect before it releases sometime next year. But that, of course, would be optimistic thinking, and we here in the Overwatch community don't deal in that sort of thing. So for the time being, I just have to sit here and wonder, was Blizzard's decision to take Overwatch 2 in the direction of 5v5 ultimately a mistake? Will it end up hindering people's interest in the game by forcing them to focus on an uninteresting aspect of the sequel that ultimately won't compel people to pick up the game and play it again, or even try it for the first time as a new player? Ultimately, we're gonna just have to wait and see, because we won't know until we learn more about the actual interesting content that's being worked on for Overwatch 2, and we probably won't be able to determine anything for certain until the game actually releases, which hopefully is sooner rather than later, but at the same time, maybe sooner rather than later will end up giving us a bad unfinished game. And so on that note, we're just going to have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on 5v5 at this point? Are you still a fan of them taking the game in this direction? Or do you think they've potentially shot themselves in the foot by trying to make this big overhaul to the PvP system that is ultimately just going to delay the other more interesting content for the sequel? Either way, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, hit up that bell icon, and come join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch content. Special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible, and if you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.